Hello everyone and welcome back to fantasyfootballfix.com and to another episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series where every week myself, FPL Phillips, takes on the computer-generated team by the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm to see if I can outscore it for points in that specific game week of the season. And now game week 31 has been a bit of a shocker overall, and apologies for this video coming a day late than it should have been released really, but we're here now, we're ready to get it going and see what the algorithm team is looking like just ahead of the game week 32 deadline. So without further ado, let's get right into it. But just before we jump into the Game Week 32 teams, this is how bad Game Week 31 did go for the algorithm team. And my own team, as you'll see in a second, wasn't too much better, with only 31 points scored by the algorithm side, which I did think was very strange to go for so many double Game Week players in a week where I didn't think they were likely to do well at all. And no one really managed to outscore the basic 4 appearance points that you get across those 2 games, with Lennon Decore scoring the highest out of any double Game Week player picked by the algorithm team. Michael Keane with another -2, which is becoming an all too familiar score for him, and Damari Gray only scoring 3, with Roberts and Pope also failing to deliver on numerous counts. The only real sparks came from a basic just clean sheet from Robertson. Also Salah grabbing only 3 points was a disappointing blank. Then Harry Kane, of course, grabbing an assist, which was quite disappointing. It was really the Son owners who came out on top this week. So let's have a look at how Eddie's team did and see if I can make it 16-17 in the scoring if I manage to outscore this pretty mesmerizing and pretty terrible 31 points from the algorithm side. So here's how my team got on, which really didn't score much better with only 8 points extra, taking my team's total to 39 points for the game week, which in a series where I'm picking a free hit team every week, really I'm quite disappointed about. We had a few good weeks on the bounce, so it was bound to come off at some point, and this game week was one where the average score was quite low on a whole anyway. The only real difference makers were Cancelo also grabbing a clean sheet, luckily to give us an extra 6-point boost there, and going Anthony Gordon over someone like a Decore or Gray also proved to be the right call. Despite him being benched in the first match, he made up for it with an assist to one of Richarlison's 2 penalties in the second game against Burnley. Mason Holgate was also sat down there on the bench, who managed to grab, I think, his second only ever Premier League goal, so that was a stroke of luck if he would have managed to get onto the pitch. But of course, Reece James did make an appearance in Chelsea's 4-1 loss to Brentford, which meant that we didn't manage to get him substituted in for an extra 8-point boost. But nonetheless, a win is a win. We'll take it, and we'll make the score 16-17 to the algorithm still. So 1 ahead, and let's see if in game week 32 I can go ahead and beat the algorithm and tie it up in the series, which will make it a pretty exciting run-in towards the end of the season. So let's stop babbling about and get into having a look at what the algorithm team is lining up with for game week 32. So then, let's see how the algorithm team is lining up, and let's kick it off with the goalkeeper, who this week is once again going to be Nick Pope, as Burnley once again hold on to their nice fixture run, meaning it's pretty impossible for us to unload on what god-awful assets they have been as of late. But a fixture against Norwich is always hard to turn down, despite them not looking as horrendous as they have looked at some points in the season, and really Burnley looking rather poor at the back after conceding a number of goals to Everton of all sides in game week 31. So Nick Pope does look like a decent shout if you're just looking at the fixture, and of course the algorithm will be taking into account form throughout the season, not just in the most recent weeks, but more emphasis on those most recent weeks, and it's come up with Nick Pope as a selection, so it's interesting to see. And for those who are owners of Nick Pope already, I would not be put off or be anywhere near transferring him out, but perhaps probably wouldn't be looking to transfer him in at this point, given that the Burnley have already had one of the double game weeks, and the good fixtures are going to be running out as their bad form continues. Into the defense then, and this week it's going to be a back 3, and they're doubling up on 2 defenses, the algorithm, with 2 Arsenal assets coming in to partner with Neil Taylor, who of course is going to pair up with Nick Pope to complete that Burnley double up. So 2 players playing against Norwich and 2 players playing against Brighton. Not bad fixtures at all, but with Kieran Tierney's absence now after undergoing surgery that he's going to have in a number of weeks, ruling him out for the season, I don't too much fancy the Arsenal defence to grab clean sheets for the remainder of the year. They have looked very very decent so far, and I would like them as one of the defences. And of course, with these teams like Man City and Liverpool playing each other big teams not having the easiest fixtures in the world, it is a nice time to go for a couple differentials here and there. And the algorithm famously really does like to hold on to Gabriel, so it's not surprising that he makes it into this side, and perhaps could be a decent looking Tierney replacement as well, if you don't fancy the likes of Fabian Schär, who also looks like a good pick, or even Reece James perhaps. In midfield then, we're looking at a midfield 5 and a very strong midfield 5 it does look like, with Fernandes and Son taking up a number of the funds this week that would have otherwise been allocated to the likes of Mohamed Salah if he wasn't playing Manchester City, and in perhaps a little bit of a rough spell of form as well. Elsewhere in midfield, Rafinha makes it in, and also Harvey Barnes, the pick of the Leicester midfielders. That's going to be a tight call between Maddison and Barnes, as it seems to be every week. But the real surprise punt, if you like, is Sarr, who's got it in there. So it's Maile Sarr of Watford, facing up against Leeds, not in really any sort of decent form, but once again, you could go for a little punt here and there on a free hit. But if you're looking to bring someone in, I probably wouldn't go for Sarr if you're looking to bring in a Watford asset. I think there probably is a better value option, and there are other midfielders in the game right now where we do want to capitalise on using those very valuable 5 midfield spots to get in those players that are in the best form. And then finally up front, it's going to be a front 2, and that is Harry Kane and Alexandre Lacazette. A very nice looking front 2 indeed, so that completes the Arsenal triple up and a Spurs double up for the algorithm, as Spurs and Arsenal take on Aston Villa and Brighton Hove Albion respectively to earn the algorithm 58 points, so not a bad total at all. On the bench, we're looking at Ivan Toney, Nelson Semedo, and also Roberts of Burnley to add in a third Burnley player to the mix if that wasn't enough, although of course very unlikely he makes it onto the pitch from the bench. But going for Taylor over Roberts is something that's I think is quite interesting. I do like Roberts as a Burnley option if you're going for one of them. I think the real call this week will be between the captaincy, with Mohamed Salah being out of the picture. It's going to be Son who takes the armband this week for the algorithm, with the other real captaincy contenders I can see in that side being Bruno Fernandes and of course Harry Kane up front. But it really always is a little bit of a coin toss between Kane and Son. It's very hard to predict who's going to come out on top if Spurs do well. Of course, a lot of people had the captain's armband on Harry Kane last week, given the form he was in. It was Son who came through and returned, so perhaps the opposite will happen this week, and Kane will return when a lot of people have moved the armband over to the Korean. But it's very hard to predict once again. But a very strong looking side from the algorithm compared to last week at least anyway. So I'm going to go away and make sure that my team is all in check, calculate my predicted points total, and reveal to you what my side is looking like for Game Week 32 in the hope that I can equal out this score. So here's the team I've picked to take on the algorithm side this week, and a lot of blue and white in this team, not so much red of the old familiar Liverpool shirts that we see week in, week out in FPL, but I've gone for 2 triple ups, and that is a Spurs triple up and also a Chelsea triple up. No Chelsea players in the algorithm team I thought was interesting. The Southampton side, of course, haven't looked bad at all, but I think Chelsea will be looking to hopefully pick up a big win this weekend. So I've gone with James and Havertz, who were pretty much always going to be in the side in my opinion, but I've also gone a bit out there with a punt of my own. The algorithm had his Maile Sarr. I've gone with Marcus Alonso, who does look predicted to start this weekend, so I'm hoping that he can start, hopefully grab some points, but if he doesn't, then we've got Connor Roberts on the bench ready to come in against Norwich, who I do quite fancy as well. I've stuck with Nick Pope too, so we're going all in for that Burnley clean sheet against Norwich, fingers crossed, and then we've also gone with Maxwell Cornet, who I think is the best Burnley attacking asset to go for, looks in some good form at the moment, and of course a midfielder, as opposed to going with a striker such as Weghorst, who, as mentioned, only scored 3 lousy points last week for people who brought in the big man. I've also gone with Maddison instead of Harvey Barnes, who I just think is the slightly better asset right now, but Harvey Barnes, as mentioned, could go wham as well. It's very similar to that dynamic between Son and Kane, where it's very hard to predict. You're just basing it on one team doing well and hopefully coming out with the better of the 2 picks. And likewise, you can see I've gone with a different selection to the algorithm over Son and Kane for the captaincy. I've gone with Harry Kane, stuck the armband on him, and also gone with Cristiano Ronaldo as opposed to Bruno Fernandes. Ronaldo looks like he'll be back and recovered and ready to hit the ground running against an Everton side who have looked pretty poor in terms of conceding goals especially, so hopefully that can be some Ronaldo-esque areas to get into. The likes of Michael Keane at the back, who seem to be lacking just ability and confidence, to be honest, and that could be Ronaldo's dream for some balls into the area, and maybe could even repeat the likes of hat-tricks that he's picked up in previous game weeks. So yeah, I'm going with Ronaldo, going with a bit of an out there punt. Of course, there's a double game week week in 33 as well if you're looking to bring him in. But many of us holding on to Mohamed Salah, of course, won't be able to shift the funds across to get in the likes of a Fernandes or a Ronaldo just in time. If you're wildcarding in the near future, doesn't look like too bad of a punt at all, with Salah, of course, not having a double game week next week as well. So you're getting an extra fixture and really some better fixtures if you're moving on to a Manchester United or even a Manchester City asset if you want to go for someone like a Kevin De Bruyne. So yeah, it's going to wrap up my team and Eddie versus the algorithm as a whole for game week 32. Let me know what your team's looking like. Have you used the assistant manager over at fantasyfootballfix.com to calculate your predicted points? If so, drop your total down below in the description. Completely free to use. All the links are down below. But I wish you the best of luck for game week 32. I'll bid you farewell. See you very soon. Goodbye.